So when I was in community college, I had a professor who I had at that time changed my major 4 times, and I was like, I'm really interested in people and understanding why they do the things they do and different cultures and all of that. And I talked to him probably for 10 minutes, and he's like, that sounds exactly like anthropology. And then I was like, well, what is that? And so I started looking it up, and I was like, that does sound exactly like what I am really interested in. And then at the time I was also an English major, and so specifically linguistic anthropology. I realized that the things that I loved about English were understanding why people made the choices that they did in the way that they wrote and what they were really trying to say with the language that they were using. And so in that type of analysis, you can do it as literary analysis, but I found a much more compatible home in linguistic anthropology. My name is Alex Krantzler, and the title of my project is Speak Like You Don't Know Hebrew, Cultivating Queer Registers in Contemporary Israel. I did my fieldwork in Tel Aviv, Israel. I spent 10 weeks there in the summer of 2018 working with the Israeli LGBTQ community. I grew up studying Hebrew for 9 years. But I grew up really sheltered. I didn't really know that gay people existed until I was 14 years old, which was the last time I also studied Hebrew. So my experiences with the Hebrew language and my experiences with my own queer identity never really overlapped. And the more that I spent time in LGBT spaces and the more that I got involved in community education, the more I started to think about how all of these conversations that we have about queer identity are happening in a language that doesn't have the same restrictions like Hebrew. I really wanted to understand how they were able to really express their identities within the confines of this language that has such binary gender restrictions. I had 2.5 months in the field, and I knew I had 2.5 months in the field. And so it was a month before that first interview, and the whole time I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not gonna have any data. I'm gonna go home with nothing. I'm gonna have failed. And that was a huge exercise in resilience for me, and in just patience and self-compassion, because it sucked to just be sitting there and trying every single day for 28 days to find a person who would talk to me, because my whole research is about talking. And so after that first interview, everything kind of snowballed, and I realized that hey, it's gonna be okay. But that was definitely something that was really, really challenging for me. I went into it knowing that people would have difficulty talking about, how to make the sentence, I'm eating dinner with my partner, gender neutral. I did not anticipate that same level of difficulty with, can you tell me about your national identity or national identities and what they mean to you? And that wound up being such a surprise and such a huge part of understanding the way people approach language, is understanding their relationship to not just their own queer identities, but also their national identity and their place in the geographic world. I was able to contribute, as cheesy as it sounds, just a space for people to talk about their experiences and identities, to let them know that people outside of the bubble that is the Israeli Hebrew-speaking LGBT community, that other people care and that other people want to know, and really kind of saying your experience transcends these national and linguistic boundaries, and it matters. The advice I'd give to future students in the program: it takes time, and especially in this program when you only have at max 3 months in the field, being patient with yourself and kind to yourself, and really just creating the space for your research just to kind of fall into place, I think is something that is so important. You get your data from so many different places, and everyone's experience in the field looks different, but the fact that you went to the field and that it came back with something that is more than you had when you went there, that means you have some data. And so really taking what you have and saying okay, let's do this. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt. and trust that your advisor and your professors will help you get through it. Because nobody in this program does this alone, even if it feels like that when you're in the field.